Good Morning Liberty.
Well, what is up, all of our liberty-loving friends? This is another fantastic episode of Good Morning Liberty. My name is Nate Thurston. Across from me is the one and the only Mr. Charles Chuck Thompson, coming at you on a beautiful Tuesday morning here in Nashville, Tennessee. Good morning, Chuck.
Good morning.
That's a good thing to say. It just popped in my head.
What if we were doing yesterday's show, though?
Yeah, that's true. I don't know.
Turns out
it was good afternoon.
The Fed Haters Club is not as boisterous in the mornings.
No, they like our numbers have always been better in the afternoon. In fact, when we release the show, releasing the show to the people is either better early in the morning or at like 7 o'clock at night. In like middle of the day, not as great. So, take that into consideration sometime.
Interesting statistics you got there.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Speaking of statistics, today is all about statistics. Some of you will find this interesting. Some of you will not. I don't really care. We're going to do our due diligence and go through some of the stats after seeing the autism press conference that happened yesterday. A lot of people left with some questions, and then some people are really upset. Some because they are upset about Tylenol, and some people are upset that they're blaming Tylenol. It's, of course, been divided among political lines. If you happen to vote Democrat, then you think that there are no problems with taking Tylenol in pregnancy. And if you happen to vote Republican, then you think that Tylenol will immediately kill you if you take it. And that's basically how it separates out right now.
Yeah.
And so I guess a few...
it was just like when Trump, released the shot.
Yeah.
In 2020. No Democrats were going to take that.
No, they weren't going to take that Trump shot.
That was Trump's shot.
And then we got a new president. It was Republicans weren't going to take the shot, and the Democrats were going to take the shot.
Same shot.
Exact same shot that Trump was going to release.
He released it.
Did release. Yeah.
After the election, he was allowed to release
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, they approved it like 2 weeks after the actual election. That's pretty wild. So a lot of people, like I said, upset, asking questions, which I think it's good to ask questions. As we said yesterday, something causes autism. Likely involves something that we put in our bodies, although there's also genetic and environmental factors as well. And I would say, in my opinion, if there is something we could find out that we should do less of, that would it's not going to entirely stop it from happening, but at least take away that extra risk factor, then that's a good thing. And we could figure out what that is. We should look into what that is, and we should try to get this sorted out, in my opinion. Before we go into some of these studies, I think I have like 4, 5, 6 studies or something like that. I wanted to go through what a couple people are saying online just to address like some of the limitations. Studies typically have limitations at the end of them, but who reads like 50 pages down to where the limitations are? And so I think it's good.
You do.
Yeah, I do. I go down there first. Well, first I see what did the study find. So I go to like the conclusions or findings or the results or whatever they show. And before I read anything else in the study, I go immediately down to the limitations. What were the limitations of the study? Before I let the other 40 pages of the study like cloud my judgment or cloud my mind, and I just think that this is like the gospel and is etched in stone or something like that. It's important to read it like in that kind of context before you make decisions and don't have time to read the limitations. So in this case, because this is a almost hour-long podcast, I'm going to start you with some of the limitations on some of what people are saying around autism. And then we're going to get into the studies that do seem to show a bit of a link, although I'll tell you right off the bat, I'm going to show you the studies, and they show a link, a correlation with Tylenol, with acetaminophen. None of them, even the ones that the White House is pointing to, that the Republicans are pointing to online, none of them prove a causal link between acetaminophen and autism. The studies themselves, the biggest ones that people point to, this Boston birth cohort and all that they're talking about.
John Hopkins.
At the end of the study, it says, this does not prove a causal link between acetaminophen and autism. More studies.
Acetaminophen. You know the thing.
And then on top of that, what we hear is that the rate of autism has exploded. All right. We had something like, you could say something like 1 in 2,000 40 years ago, and now it's 1 in 31. Or it's 1 in 150 in the early 2000s, and now it's 1 in 31 or 1 in 36. I don't remember what exactly the number is. And it's true, those are the numbers, but you have to come at all this with an open mind, no biases. I think that there is something that is causing an uptick, but I don't want to use we've moved from 1 in 2000 to 1 in 31 or 1 in 36. There are, in fact, things that have changed that number outside of other conditions. One of the main ones has been the diagnostic criteria for autism. So like before you have
spectrum disorder.
Yes.
ASD.
They've added things into this spectrum. And that's important because while you're talking about this and coming to these conclusions, you got to have like a fair conversation about it. And the rise doesn't look like it's been as much as what so many people have talked about, but it has gone up. Okay, so we're gonna talk about that. For instance, here's this post right here. The White House posted out, in the last 22 years, autism rates among children have increased nearly 400%. It's time to make our children healthy again. And they show a graph of autism rates from 2000 to 2022, and it's going up. The line's going up. And this is given a great opportunity for like a bunch of memes. Like they'll show like Toyota RAV4 sales have gone up at roughly the same line. And I think it's the M2 money supply, honestly, I think is what's actually happened. So a lot of people saying correlation, causation. Correlation's not causation. This person
we did this yesterday in the pre-show, which was hilarious.
With which one?
Well, we came up with all kinds of correlations.
Well, I mean, I don't want to tell people too much about it, but they do need to go to joingmail.com so they can hang out.
It was hilarious, and I was hoping to make some of them into the show that was recorded, but didn't happen.
Did not happen. You'll have to be there.
Yep.
You got to be there. This person says, this is because in 2013, the definition of autism was expanded to include Asperger's, CDD, PDD-NOS, and the autistic disorder. Numbers went up because the definition changed to include more variants, and testing awareness of autism just got better over time. This is insane. Now, it's true that this is added to a higher rate of diagnosis. That's actually accounts for about 60%-ish of the number, something like that. Like a little over half of the increase can be accounted for by adding in these other things into the spectrum. So like that's important to note when you're talking about how much things have gone up, that you change your criteria. We do the same thing when we talk about like mass shootings. Like there's a big mass shooting graph going around and look at this big jump right here. Well, also they changed the definition of a mass shooting from like 4 people shot to 3 people shot at that same year. And they didn't adjust the previous years. They just started right there and it jumped up a whole bunch. And since they didn't adjust the previous years, it looked like there was a big spike.
And now they can use that graph.
Now they use the graph
to pass legislation.
And it's the same thing. They changed the diagnostic criteria. They didn't adjust the previous years. So like when they tell you the previous years, it does not include all of the things that they have added in to the diagnosis. And so like you just got to get all this stuff like right out in front so you're having an honest conversation about it.
By the way, Elon Musk has Asperger's.
Yes.
But if he would have been diagnosed after 2013, it would just be ASD.
Yeah.
My son, I feel, I don't know for sure, but I feel like he would be leaning more towards an Asperger's diagnosis if it still existed, and not, although I would say he's a little further on the spectrum than like an Elon Musk. And I'm talking just in like personality and things like that. I'm not talking about intelligence. So it is interesting how they've put it all in a spectrum rather than trying and see, this is the problem with this whole inclusivity garbage. Like, there should be degrees to this thing. That way you have better treatments, better research, because there is a very, very broad spectrum. I mean, you have some parents who struggle with autistic kids who are completely nonverbal, can't articulate or communicate anything. They're frustrated all the time. They
can't even use the toilet.
Can't use the toilet. That's a nightmare for the parents. And they love this child that like can't communicate, and it's not because the kid's dumb or anything like that. It's just like their brain doesn't function in a neurotypical way to where they can actually. It's almost like if you could imagine like being trapped in your body, like almost in a state of a coma, but you can move around, and it's like, but you can't say what you want to say. Like, imagine how frustrated you would feel.
Yeah.
And all the way to like Elon Musk, who is now the richest man in the world and runs 57,000 companies and seems to be able to work 20 hours a day. Like,
and they're in the same
that's a big
diagnosis
spectrum.
Group.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a really wide, like, honestly, I wish my mom had taken a little bit more Tylenol, and so then maybe I could be the richest guy in the world, not too much.
Yeah.
Just like a little bit,
Yeah.
I need this is all her fault, I think. A 2015 Danish study of children born between 1980 and 1991 found that 60% of the observed rise in ASD was due to these diagnostic expansions and improved reporting practices. A 2015 U.S. analysis of special education data showed that 2/3 of the increase between 2000 and 2010 resulted from diagnostic substitution. Children reclassified from intellectual disability to ASD, with ASD cases tripling, while intellectual disability diagnosis dropped by about 28%. So, in my opinion, using, it's the same thing as when we talk about gun deaths or mass shootings like that. I think that's a really great example here. You need to be using data that has adjusted for the change in the criteria to fit in ASD so people can have like an honest conversation about this. It has gone up, but when you adjust for the changes in diagnostic criteria, the actual prevalence, like in the 1980s and 1990s, was around 1 in 44. Like, not like 1 in 150, not like 1 in 500. Like, if you included all of these things that are right now included in the ASD diagnosis, is 1 in 44. So it has gone up. But it's not this.
What, 1 in 35 now?
Insane. Let me get what the actual number is now.
From 1 in 44 to 1 in 35?
Did I not actually?
It seems to be more prevalent in boys, by the way. Boys is 1 in 12.
It is. Yeah.
But honestly, that could just because females are better at masking it.
Yeah.
And so they don't get diagnosed.
I brought all this stuff in here and I didn't bring that information. This thing right here, there's two things here. And this is a wild thing that people do nowadays. But like this person said, yesterday, 5 powerful men stood together in the White House and shamed pregnant women, told them to tough it out through pain. They shamed moms of autistic kids and blamed them for their child's condition. They shamed autistic people, called them broken and in need of fixing. They said, can we all be kinder and less stigmatizing?
God.
That did not seem like what they did. They did not blame mothers who took Tylenol like recklessly, especially when the U.S. government themselves say that it's a safe thing to take while you're pregnant.
Man, we need to reprogram the human psyche. Because this is what the algorithm rewards, just people just saying
stupid stuff.
The stupidest things.
Yeah.
And
in what way did they shame autistic people? Here's another example here. This is from the American Association of People with Disabilities. And this screenshot's been going around. It says autism doesn't need to be cured.
God.
And there's just like, I get it. Okay. Now I'm not a parent and I'm not a parent. of an autistic child. Someone sitting across from me is, okay? But I imagine, you can tell me if this is correct. I imagine that when you have a child with that kind of, you call it a disability or call it a whatever you want to call it, like you have to accept that. And of course, you love them. They're perfect the way they are. There's nothing, like wrong with the way, I know no one's perfect the way they are. They could all get better. I know Jordan Peterson. I know.
Chuck Peterson.
As I said that out loud, I was like, no, he's going to smack that right down.
No, he has a lot of work to do.
But that's that sentiment has morphed into this thing that like you shouldn't need to cure autism or you shouldn't need to prevent autism because the act of preventing it or the act of curing it is like stigmatizing people with autism.
No, it's not.
And that's freaking psychotic.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is like, it's like Munchausen by proxy via autism.
It really is, but it's like it's so empathetic that it's like you're like glorifying the thing and saying like, well, you wouldn't want your kid to not be autistic. It's wrong for you to want your kid to not be autistic. That means you're shaming your autistic child. And no, you tell me like you're pregnant mom or you're the father and your spouse is pregnant or whatever, and there's literally two buttons here, and you push. That's the way it's going to go. You have a child that comes out perfectly neurotypical, normal, healthy, or you hit this button and they're somewhere on the autism spectrum. I don't know, just say they're like right in the middle of the spectrum, whatever that is.
Or,
okay,
let's make it a more fun game. They have a chance to be like Elon Musk or a chance to be completely nonverbal.
Yeah. Somewhere in there.
You got to take a risk.
But here's the choice. Completely neurotypical, no health problems whatsoever, or somewhere ASD. Okay? Which one are you going to pick?
Normal.
You're going to pick the normal one.
Everyone will
pick the normal. It's okay to say that you're going to pick the normal one. Doesn't mean you hate your kid. Doesn't mean you don't love your kid. Doesn't mean you're not going to want the best for them or you're not going to try to make sure they have the best life. Doesn't mean you think that they're never going to lead a good life or that they're never going to be normal or anything like that. But it's okay to admit that you would think that if there's a factor that causes this, that we should figure out what it is so kids don't have to live like this.
And at least give people the option to, not do things that might harm or change a baby's natural neurotypical progression. Mm-hmm. I guarantee if moms knew that Tylenol or Acetaminophen would cause any type of potential damage to their child, almost all of them would not take it.
Yeah.
They wouldn't care the pain that they're in, by the way. Like, women have this very innate protective measure over, especially when they're pregnant and have newborns. That comes natural to them, and they will, they go through childbirth, which is like one of the worst pains ever, as if it's, I know it's painful during the time, but afterwards it's like they would do anything for that child.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think that they would be just fine having a headache, going to sleep if they knew?
If they knew that this was a possibility. Yeah.
Now that's most.
Yeah.
There are some obviously drug addicted moms and things like that where that doesn't take place, but that's not typical.
And I think everyone at that press conference yesterday did a great job except for Trump. I think he went too far with the stuff that he said, like, don't take Tylenol. Tylenol is bad. And it's like Trump probably earned some lawsuits yesterday. When RFK was speaking, McCary was speaking, Bhattacharya was speaking, they were essentially saying, like, don't just take it for like a low, hardly any fever whatsoever. You need to just be aware that there are some risks associated, but it doesn't mean that if your fever is 103.5 or 104, that you should be like, oh, I don't want to take Tylenol because there's a potential 3% increase or 3 times increased risk that my child would be autistic if I take Tylenol for 2 days to try and drop my fever. Like, that's not what they were saying. That's not what they're saying. It's kind of what Trump said yesterday. And a lot of people are upset about that, and they rightly, probably should be. There's a little bit more nuance to the conversation here, because a mom just going with 104, 105 fever without taking Tylenol is risking other things going wrong with the baby that could be even worse.
Yeah. Like anything, you have to do a cost-benefit analysis,
mm-hmm.
a risk analysis.
Yeah.
And make the best decision that you can for the circumstances that you're in. When you were talking about, wouldn't change a thing or anything like that, because I do have a son with autism. And of course, like, if I had the opportunity when he was like in utero to choose, I would choose for him to be normal. That's number one. But that can't happen now.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't want to go back and change it, because I can't. It is what it is. But if you're telling me that, do I wish I could, and I wouldn't change a thing about his personality or who he is as a person. But if you're telling me if I could, not have to wipe his butt when he was now 8 still, because he can't fully grasp the concept of full potty training. Now, for the most part, he's pretty much, takes care of himself. Or the fact that he still can't tie his shoes, no matter how many times I've showed him how to do it and trained him and walked him through it. I mean, the amount of hours that are spent, God, when he like 2 to 6 years old, there's 4 years where it was like every night just begging him to eat something other than crackers, and getting him to, take a bite of chicken or steak, but then he would chew it in his mouth for an hour, and then you're trying to be patient. But like, if you're telling me I could change all those things, and there are parents that have way worse experiences than me, but even my experience, like, those are extremely, sometimes very frustrating, especially when you're busy and you're in a hurry.
Yeah, but
you're just like, oh, I wish you could more easily understand this concept. And I'm not mad at him. I'm frustrated at the circumstance. And if you're telling me that there's a way to not have those experiences because we can figure out a way for for those symptoms to happen less often, sign everyone up for that.
Yeah, but in this case, it's not just about the parent's experience either. It's about your son's experience and being able to, if he wants to go outside, put his shoes on in time and not have to seek help from someone.
He gets frustrated himself, yes.
And so like that, you don't have to look at it as a way to make parents' lives better. It's a way to make the kid's life better.
I'm just speaking from my experience.
Okay.
And I think it's mainly because there are a bunch of adults out there talking about how we don't need a cure for autism, whatever. It's like, well, how about let's ask the autistic community, like the actual, people who are in it.
You take this course of pills, you by next month you will be almost neurotypical. Almost entirely neurotypical. You're saying are you telling me as a parent you would not give them that course of pills?
Yeah.
That's wild. That's dangerous. Okay. I want to start off here as we try to get through some studies with the one that the other side has been posting out there, and it's this Swedish study, and it says no link between paracetamol, which is acetaminophen, used during pregnancy, and autism or ADHD in children. And this one's been put out there by tons of people. It's posted in JAMA. So let me get through some of this. Actually, there was a clip of someone talking about it on MSNBC, I think. So we're going to play that clip real quick because they bring up this same study.
Research gets better. And just a few years ago, one of the largest, best quality research studies ever done, 25 years in Sweden, looked at siblings, one exposed in utero, the other not, to Tylenol. And what did that find, Anna? When controlling for genetics, family history, maternal, paternal age, known risk factors for autism, that there was no link. So the best quality research has shown no link between the use of Tylenol in utero or during pregnancy and the development of autism.
President Trump actually seemed to acknowledge this weekend that today's announcement could be wrong. Take a listen.
I don't want to wait any longer. We don't need anything more. And if it's wrong, it's right. It's not going to be wrong. But if it is wrong, it's fine that we have to do it, because we're going to have an announcement on autism.
All right, so that's a clip from MSNBC, and I want to go into some of the study. The limitation part is hilarious. There's a really big post on X going around, going through some of this study right now, saying Tylenol and autism, RFK Jr. and Trump are wrong. The largest and best study in the world with 2.5 million kids found no increased autism risk with acetaminophen use by mother during pregnancy. It did find increased risk, by the way, but then when they did the sibling cohort adjustment, one sibling, mother getting Tylenol, and the other sibling, the mother did not take Tylenol. I guess they basically killed the link. Now, there's an issue with this study, and this one actually has some of the craziest limitations of all the studies, which is really funny that this post said that the largest and best study in the world of 2.5 million kids, and it's got a pretty wild study here. Let me get limitations. The Swedish study only counted the mothers who were prescribed Tylenol by a doctor. And so all the other mothers in the study and all the other children could have been exposed to Tylenol the whole time if it was over-the-counter use of Tylenol, but none of that was counted. So that all the groups in the study are mixed-matched all over the place, and any of them could have had Tylenol. Any of them might not have had Tylenol. They don't know. They only know if they had inpatient or outpatient medical care and were prescribed acetaminophen by a doctor. And that's why in the study, they only found that 7.5% of the parents used acetaminophen during pregnancy. That's way below what the actual rates are. The actual rates are somewhere between 50 and 70, even up to 80%.
Yeah, because it's like one of the only drugs that pregnant women can have.
Yeah.
It's like
the number is way over 50.
Considered safe.
And so it should be an immediate red flag for this study that only 7.5% of the parents in the study actually had acetaminophen use, meaning they missed out on way more people that took it in there. And some of them where they're saying, well, in this group, they had roughly the same rate of autism as the other group. Well, yeah, you only got 7.5% of the amount of the people that took it. The other ones were all taken over the counter. And you even ask them about that. You know, they're literally only using medical records and prescriptions.
Or you knew about it and then excluded it.
Yeah. And so I can't take that study seriously. And that's the one that like the MSNBC thing is bringing it up. This massive post with over 8,000 reposts at the time I screenshot it like 3 hours ago, is talking about this study. And what am I supposed to take from that when they didn't even count everyone who used Tylenol in the study, trying to disprove that Tylenol had nothing to do with it? Again, I'm not saying that Tylenol is like the cause of autism. It's not the cause. Because they created autism, they separated that out from, I think, like schizophrenia or something like that, like back in 1911. And so Tylenol wasn't being used until 1955 is when it was being used. And so, no, like it's not the cause of autism. And everyone needs to realize that. There were many other things that caused this, but it is pretty interesting to me. I've got this pulled up somewhere. I don't remember where it is now. The prevalence of mothers using Tylenol, that really spiked up in the 90s. They found out that aspirin wasn't super safe to use, and this really started ticking up in the 90s and the 2000s, which starts to kind of correlate with some of the actual increase of autism diagnosis, even if you adjust for all of the stuff that's been added into the spectrum. The increase of mothers using Tylenol sort of happened around the same time. So, I think that's fairly important. Okay, some of the studies that support this, and there are actually a lot of them, and they have been getting published for years, by the way. And yes, there is a current lawsuit, many lawsuits against Tylenol and the makers of Tylenol regarding autism and ADHD.
Which is now a different company.
They spun off, oddly enough, like right after all the big lawsuits got going. So I don't know. Mount Sinai study supports evidence that prenatal acetaminophen use may be linked to increased risk of autism and ADHD. Researchers,
and by the way, so that's a good way of putting it, may lead to an increased risk of it, which is like anything else we talk about. like, eating bad food that it causes you to be overweight increases all sorts of risks, heart disease, cancer, like all sorts of things. So it's like taking certain drugs. There's a risk to some of those drugs. Just watch a commercial.
It doesn't mean it gives you that thing.
Exactly.
By the way. You can eat the Doritos, and you can do all that, and it doesn't mean you catch heart disease from the Doritos or something, but it can increase your risk factors for that. Okay. Same thing with the Tylenol. It increased the risk. In some studies, they're going to say it's like by like as much as 3 times the risk. And so we're going to see if we can get to that portion here. Researchers at the Icahn School of, I don't know how you say that, School of Medicine at Mount Sinai have found that prenatal exposure to acetaminophen. Okay. Yeah. All right. May increase risk of neurodevelopmental disorders, including autism, spectrum disorder, and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder in children. The study published today in BMC Environmental Health is the first to apply the rigorous navigation guide methodology to systematically evaluate the quality of scientific literature. Quote, our findings show that higher quality studies are more likely to show a link between prenatal acetaminophen exposure and increased risk of autism and ADHD, said this doctor. Dr. Prada. He's got a long, when did you get to? It's like 2 lines of credentials for this guy. Quote, given the widespread use of this medication, even a small increase in risk could have major public health implications. Because so many people are using them, even if there is a small increased risk, you've got so many people that are exposed to that. It could be, a lot more people get them. Let's see. While the study, this is one of the studies people point to, while the study does not show that acetaminophen directly causes neurodevelopmental disorders, the research team's findings strengthen the evidence for a connection and raise concerns about current clinical practices. The researchers call for cautious, time-limited use of acetaminophen during pregnancy, under medical supervision, updated clinical guidelines to better balance the benefits and risks, and further research to confirm these findings and identify safer alternatives for managing pain and fever in expectant mothers.
By the way, this is nothing new. Look, again, there's all sorts of medications that pregnant women can't take.
There's a lot of them, yeah.
Because there could be potential risks to neurodevelopmental, physical developmental. There's all sorts of risks to something happening to the child in utero. And so this is not, it's crazy to me the amount of people who will just completely disregard this because it's coming from Trump's administration.
Yeah.
That's what's baffling to me. It's like there's no nuance in thinking. Like we've lost all critical thinking skills. We've lost all muscle control as a society, and we're so politically divided that it would be like if Trump announced the cure to cancer. None of the Democrats are taking it.
No, not going to do it.
It's literally a cure for cancer pill. Not a single Democrat will take it.
They weren't going to take the COVID vaccine,
Well,
and damn sure weren't going to give it to their kids, But what's crazy is a lot of these studies are showing acetaminophen increasing the risk of autism by more than the increased risk of dying of COVID if you don't take the COVID vaccine as a child, which is like none. Like almost none risk is the answer. And they're going to be like, nope, not going to do it. Just no way.
Then they wanted to mandate it.
Yeah.
On the reverse.
For something that had like no risk of happening. So I'll just give you some of the results here. So this is one of those where they're looking at previous studies, and this one tried to identify all the limitations of those studies. Did they look at other risk factors in those people, and tried to weed out through the best studies. And so they identified 46 studies for their analysis. Of those 46, 27 of the studies reported positive associations, that's significant links for neurodevelopmental disorders. 9 showed no association, no significant link, and 4 indicated negative associations, meaning that they actually saw positive effects from the acetaminophen. Higher quality studies were more likely to show positive associations, showing a link between the two. Overall, the majority of studies reported positive associations for ADHD, ASD, and NDD in offspring. So we got that. I'm just trying to give you guys some of this information here. In this conclusion, though, I made sure I highlighted. Our analysis demonstrated evidence consistent with an association between exposure to acetaminophen during pregnancy and offspring with NDDs, including ASD and ADHD, though observational limitations preclude definitive causation. So I'm going to always highlight that stuff to you. Once again, this study that backs up the idea that there is a link between acetaminophen and ASD also says they cannot show definitive causation.
It's not, and what that means, by the way, is that if you're pregnant and you take a Tylenol, it does not mean your child for sure is going to have autism.
No,
Like they can't prove that, and that's because there are several pregnant people who have taken Tylenol. We know this because there's a bunch of Tylenol usage among pregnant women. Again, because it's one of the only drugs they can actually have that is considered safe, and so they take it, and we don't see everyone having autism. So
yeah.
it's not a 1-for-1.
And what they also like when they say,
But it could be, and I'll just say this, and I don't think she would mind me sharing. I had a really heartfelt and good conversation with Parker's mom last night, because I didn't know whether or not she had taken Tylenol or a lot of Tylenol or anything like that. And so I just kind of reached out to her and said, hey, the big question is, and, don't feel bad. I'm not attacking you or anything like that. I'm just curious, because I don't really know. And unbeknownst to me, she was, and she didn't know, she was taking Tylenol PM every night to go to sleep. And now, did that cause Parker's autism? We don't know. Could it have contributed? Possibly. And I told her, she said she feels sad about it. And I was like, please don't blame yourself. Like you were doing the best you could with the circumstances at hand, and you had no idea. Please don't blame yourself.
yeah.
And we had a really good conversation, and she said that he's still perfect in my eyes, and I was talking about how Parker's his spirit and like his joyful way in which he approaches life is like, I wouldn't change it for the world, because and this is like one of the best parts about being a parent, and why I would encourage everyone to be a parent if you can, because there's something about like being able to live vicariously through the eyes of children who have a wonderment for the world again. And like Parker has the best wonderment. It is so fun. Yesterday on the way home from school, I told him, hey, when we get to the house, can you help me? And he's like, yeah, I'd love to help you, Dad. And I'm like, all right, well, I was like, Brittany's not feeling good, and I have to do one more phone call. And he was like, well, who's your phone call with? And I was like, it's with Nate. And he just starts busting out laughing. He was like, what do you mean with Nate? Nate's at the house. And he, like, a legit, like, just funny laugh. And it was so, I was like, I was smiling from ear to ear because it was just so fun. And anyway, I say all that to say, like, I had a great conversation with her, and she said, I'm thankful you love him so well, and he loves you. And I was like, he loves you too. And, I wouldn't go back and change anything because we can't. But I hope mothers know that if you did take Tylenol and your child is autistic, like, it's not your fault. You were doing the best you could with the circumstances that we had, and the research that we know.
And you, by the way, it's still not a proven fact that the Tylenol is what led to your child being autistic either. So not only should you not blame yourself if that is what caused it, you definitely shouldn't blame yourself because we don't even know if that's what caused it.
Right.
So there are other factors. Like they were like, well, people who took Tylenol were also more likely to be mothers who smoked or drank. You know, just like if you took Tylenol, you were more likely to do these things. Or if you took Tylenol, you were also likely to have a higher BMI. Or if you took Tylenol, you're also likely, and this is an important one, you were likely to be an older mom. And that has shown links there as well. And so like that's what they really mean when they say they can't prove the causal relationship, is when you're looking at these observational studies, it could be any of the things that I just said. It could have been the smoking, it could have been a high BMI, it could have been that you're an older mom, could have been that you were an older mom with also an older dad. And those have shown links as well. And so it could still be that like the actual chemical that's in these drugs is not the thing that causes it. It just happens to be associated with, you know, and these are the kind of people that take it, and these are the kind of people that take it for prolonged periods of time. And that could be what we're talking about right now. Right now.
And also, I think largely it's genetics, you know, like that plays a major factor. I mean, God, do you guys know there are, you know, people out there who have smoked cigarettes their entire lives and never got lung cancer? Like,
yeah,
it's like their genetics are like, I don't care what you do to my lungs, I will be the strongest lungs you've ever seen in your life.
But we do know that cigarettes cause lung cancer.
Yes.
You know, we know that.
Well,
so
it increases the risk.
It does increase, but it is the cause.
Oh, well, there's other people who never smoked ever get lung cancer.
Yeah, I know.
It doesn't mean that but it very likely increases the risk, and you're more likely to have lung cancer if you smoke or vape or anything like that.
Here's a because I know we got kind of a shorter time frame here. I got two more things, I think. This is a big one that a lot of people are pointing to. I'll give you this from Johns Hopkins. And this talks about the data from the Boston birth cohort. So it's taking Tylenol during pregnancy associated with elevated risk for autism, ADHD. Johns Hopkins study analyzing umbilical cord blood samples found that newborns with the highest exposure to acetaminophen were about 3 times more likely to be diagnosed with ADHD or ASD. I'm just going to read some of this overview so we don't have to go through the study, even though I did go through it and I brought screenshots. Let's see. Researchers analyzed data from the Boston birth cohort, a 20-year study of early life factors influencing pregnancy and child development. They found that children whose cord blood samples contained the highest levels of acetaminophen were roughly 3 times more likely to be diagnosed with ADHD or autism spectrum disorder later in childhood compared to children with the lowest levels of acetaminophen in their cord blood. So that was published in JAMA, and here's that study. And you can look at that study, and they talk about how it's interesting. The studies have found that acetaminophen could cross the human placental barrier, remain in the infant's blood circulation for a long duration. So, like, they know that. It's crazy. They still don't even know exactly how Tylenol works. I didn't realize that. So many of these studies said that. They're like, yeah, we don't really know what it does, how it works. We know it kind of fixes some of these things. You know, kind of works similar to an NSAID or something like that, but we don't exactly know the mechanism that's taking place here, which is so wild that they can all say that, like, we don't really know how this thing works. We just know that it does, and it seems to be pretty safe. And then everyone else can say, but I know for sure it doesn't cause any bad things to happen when you take it as a pregnant mother. I just know that 100%. Trump and RFK's brainworm are lying to you right now.
Also, it looks like, back up a little bit, in that study they say, despite its widespread use, it says more than 65% of women in the United States and 50% in Europe use acetaminophen during pregnancy. Despite its widespread use, previous studies in animals and humans have found an association between prenatal acetaminophen exposure and increased risks of adverse childhood outcomes, including asthma, cryptorchidism, and neurodevelopmental disorders, including ADHD and ASD. So it's not just those, by the way. It could be asthma and other things. And I think, I also think if genetically you're predisposed to some of those conditions, like I'm pretty sure I read a study that the likelihood of your child having eczema, for instance, is if the mother has asthma. Isn't that strange?
Interesting. Just like a little spin-off there.
It's almost
some
like
kind.
they're correlated.
Yeah.
You know? By the way, Parker has eczema too. And pretty sure, his mom also has asthma.
Interesting.
Which is very strange.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like weird that that's kind of like correlated.
That's just like the next evolution of that.
But still doesn't mean it's, causation. But I find that interesting.
This is interesting too. Studies in rodents reported acetaminophen toxicity in cortical neurons and inhibition of fetal testosterone production, which would critically disrupt brain development. I can't even say the rest of those words in there. Let's see. Yeah, I'm not even gonna attempt it. You know, Trump was strong enough to attempt the word acetaminophen yesterday, at least.
What paragraph are you on?
This cyclooxygenase. Okay, I guess I can say it.
There you go.
I was just scared to say it out loud. And then I tried it, and it wasn't that hard. You know. In addition, the therapeutic effect of acetaminophen can selectively inhibit cyclooxygenase. Yeah, that word. Which may affect multiple brain functions, including long-term potentiation, spatial learning, and cerebellar development. So that's interesting. That's in rodents. Okay, so not quite the same thing. Let's see. Let's get to. They already told you the 3 times more likely thing. That's what this page says. Limitations. You got to say this is the one a lot of people are pointing back to. This Boston birth cohort. A lot of people are talking about. So we have to look at the limitations page. Okay. The present study has some limitations. First, it only included a one-time measurement of cord acetaminophen metabolites at birth. Given that the half-life of acetaminophen in adults is less than 3 hours, the cord plasma measurement may at most reflect maternal use of acetaminophen during the peripartum period. So they're saying the half-life is 3 hours, meaning this is a pretty recent use, likely a pretty recent use of acetaminophen. And because they're only testing the umbilical cords, they can't tell you that there was long-term use of acetaminophen. They can't say how frequent it was throughout the whole pregnancy. They can't tell you, did they take it early on in the pregnancy, midway through, or did they just take it the day before because they were clearly in pain?
Or did they take it while they were in labor?
Yeah, while they were in labor. And so that is a major limitation of this study, just so you guys know. But for whatever reason, the ones that had the higher levels of acetaminophen also had 3 times higher levels of autism and ADHD.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But that is what the study can tell you. That's all they can tell you, is that someone who took Tylenol, at least in the last day, for whatever reason, could be because they're about to have a baby, that there are higher rates of autism and ADHD. That's all the study can tell you.
And I think here's what is cool about this is that at least this is one, now we can further research into this and try to figure out, okay, what trimester, we can start to expand the studies. We can pour, research into this and try to figure it out. So that's cool. The second thing is that now at least we have some data that mothers and doctors can make decisions based on whether or not it's necessary to take a Tylenol. Like you said, if you have a high-grade fever that could lead to other adverse effects of the newborn, maybe you want to take a Tylenol.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're just kind of achy...
Like it's a bun in the oven, but you don't actually want to bake it.
Right.
You don't want to do that.
Or, if like, a pregnant woman can decide, if they just have like a little... And I'm good. Again, take what I say as a man, because I don't know. The women in the Fed Haters Club can correct me if I'm wrong. But instead of like taking Tylenol every time you have a little bit of back pain, and it could be a lot of bit of back pain.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't have the backs that carry. It might be a lot. It could be unbearable. That's possible. But for the pregnant women out there or ladies who have had kids, I see some of them spinning up here in the Fed Haters Club. You could let me know, were there times where you maybe had just like a little bit of back pain? And now you can decide, instead of taking the Tylenol because of this new data, you can say, okay, well, maybe I can suffer through this until it becomes unbearable. And then maybe I might take one and that'll get me through the night or the day or whatever. But I'm going to try to limit my intake, and therefore potentially decrease the risk. I mean, that is what should be being, I think, celebrated, is that we now have more data and more studies and more things and more education for people to make more and better informed decisions.
And by the way,
and it doesn't matter what administration releases it.
Trump did not direct all these studies to happen.
No.
RFK did not direct all of these studies to happen. These are studies posted from 2016, 2015, 2019, 2021. They're all through and it's not like Trump directed them. They're studies from Europe or from wherever else. It's not just because they directed them to happen. This is something that people have been looking into. Okay. It sure as hell wasn't Trump's first administration making this happen. Trump's first administration were the ones that brought you the jab. Okay. And so I don't think they didn't have this Make America Healthy Again, RFK Jr. type approach in the first administration. And so that's, you should still be able to look at these studies, and so many of these people in JAMA and Nature and all these other NIH has, there's studies on there saying, yeah, so it seems to be a little bit of correlation here. You're gonna have to look into it. And by the way, what you were talking about earlier, Charlie, is that another thing that a lot of these studies have shown is that the duration and dosage has been important also. Like, of the studies that actually looked at this, that duration has been an seemingly important factor, which also suggests that, like, if you have a headache and it's really bad, something like that, and it doesn't mean that you're going to take Tylenol for the next 4 months because you have a headache today. You could take it, possibly. Don't take my advice on that, but it seems to be suggesting that, yeah, a short-term low-dose use, that has been okay. Take that Swedish study as an example. They only looked at people that were prescribed and directed and took as directed by a doctor to take their Tylenol, and they didn't look at any of the people in the way that they used it over the counter. And so when they only looked at that, they saw there was barely a difference, which could suggest to you that the way that a doctor prescribes it in that specific circumstance and that specific dosage for a short amount of time could be fine. Could end up with the same risk factor that you do otherwise. And so once again, like, I didn't like, Trump just went way too far with the comments yesterday, and he could actually invite some lawsuits from Kenview, in my opinion, because, and RFK and all the other people tried to clean it up afterwards. And they said it in the proper way, but, it's just
because he has to take credit.
Like, he should have said acetaminophen. I'm not even sure, that given the way that he came out and he couldn't pronounce the word acetaminophen and decided, like, basically it's Tylenol. And then he just said Tylenol the whole time. And I was wondering in the back of my mind if they weren't supposed to call out the brand name Tylenol, like, by name the whole time, and just be talking about acetaminophen the whole time. And then that kind of, maybe releases some of their liabilities, and being up there talking about that. I think we've basically presented most of the information. I know you got to go. What did we tell you today? That's a great question. That's an awesome question. All right. If you guys
well, I think what we said is we don't know all the answers, because we don't. You should take the data and talk to your doctor, and then make more informed decisions. And there are some people who get pregnant and don't care. They take whatever medication, and they also take drugs and whatever else. I don't think this is really for those people. I would encourage them not to do that, because I think life is precious, and you should try to do what you can to protect your child. You also have to take care of yourself. So there's that element to it. And I think people, the more you know, and the more you understand, the more decisions you can make. I also want, mothers to know that do have autistic children not to blame themselves, especially with not knowing. I don't think that we should shame anyone. I don't think that really works in helping people make decisions. I think we should encourage and lead with, kindness and love. And I think that now that we have more data, hopefully we can get even more data and we can continue to make better informed decisions as we continue to progress through this thing called life. And I mean, right now, there's never been a better time to be alive. 50 years from now, it'll probably be even better unless we devolve into nuclear civil war. Who knows? But the more that we can study and research and make more and better informed decisions, the better the better life is in general. And, we can, who knows, expand the human time horizon.
Yeah.
And our job is to hopefully leave this place a little bit better than we found it. And, bring people to the kingdom of heaven is what I would say.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. I agree. And I just want to let you know, look up online. There is currently a class action lawsuit against Tylenol for the autism thing, and happened to be filed and get going just a little bit before Johnson & Johnson spun off all those medications to over there, the Kenvue, separating themselves from all of those things. And if you want to get your conspiracy hat on, a bunch of these studies were published around the same time. And I wonder if they're worried about lawsuits. And also, I wonder how you join in on those class action lawsuits. That's my question right there. I guess you just have to Google that thing. But
well, can they prove that Tylenol knew this and hid it?
No, they're not going to be able to prove it.
Like,
their best option is if they wanted to settle, just to shut it off. But no, at this point, there's not anything proving the causation, so they won't be able to. Yeah, do your research. Don't go all the way one way or another. It's not perfectly 100% safe and effective, and also it's not just going to kill you and your child if you take it. There's some nuance somewhere
that we know of.
Middle ground. Yeah, sorry, I'm not a medical professional, and I maintain no liability for any actions that you take based off of any statements made on this podcast without the written discretion of Good Morning Liberty Inc. And so I don't even know what I just said. It doesn't make any sense.
I don't have a license, nor do I have malpractice insurance. So nothing I've said today is any advice whatsoever.
Don't listen to any of it.
This is for pure entertainment purposes.
For entertainment purposes only.
Exactly.
There you go.
So anyway, I hope you all enjoyed today's entertainment. If you enjoyed the show, share it around. Leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Go to GodHatesFeds.com. Be part of the live group. Some really cool people in here. So join GML.com. You want to be part of that? Yes. Thank you to the live group. Ask your doctor if you need medical advice. Talk to your doctor about that.
Talk to your doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Understand the risks. Talk to your doctor. You know your doctor.
Also, talk to your doctor about joining the Fed Haters Club.
Mm-hmm.
Tell them you heard about all the great benefits.
Talk to him or her, because they're
even letting women be doctors these days. It's a crazy world we're living in, man.
I still wish we could have. Yesterday, the funniest pre-show, I think, was the correlation between autism. You see the chart going up, and women in the workforce. So,
forgot about that one. Yeah,
and I'm not saying that that's what's causing it. I'm just saying, well, it leads to stress and all kinds of stuff.
Well, they actually have shown one of the correlations is older moms, people having kids later in life.
Oh, well, that leads to all kinds of complications.
Which you directly could tie to women in the workforce. So, I mean, this is the problem.
It's possible. And I'm fine with women wanting to choose that career. It just comes with risks.
This is Charlie and I making sure that any goodwill we built up with you guys during this show, any of you women out there, that we just topple it back over right at the end of the show.
I love women.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're great.
Yeah, great cooks.
Without women, we wouldn't be here. All right.
No, that is accurate.
They have a wonderful, necessary role to play, as do men. I think we need each other, and that's the problem with our culture. We don't have time for an entire culture debate, but we'll get there.
Yeah.
I think we got to carry on the torch from Charlie and maybe make a few corrections, but in large part, there are solutions to our culture problem, but we don't have time for that today. So I'm telling you to share the show. Visit the links in the show notes to support the sponsors that support this show. If you do all of that, then we'll be back again tomorrow. Hope you have a good day and a good morning, Liberty.